We kick off this evening with a look at the cinema.
I'm not a complicated man. I like cinema.
It's beautiful, beautiful cinema.
Cinema history come to life.
I found my solace in the small cinema I went to every Thursday night.
I'm a professor of cinema.
I go to the cinema for the stories.
There was no competition between the cinema and seminar.
I mean, it's not within the realm of conventional cinema.
And now,
here's Payson Johnson
with a cinema review.
It is Monday, September 30th, 8 EST, and thank you for joining me for another episode of Cinemaster's Reviews. Exciting show this week. We have two reviews. One, the new DreamWorks animated film, The Wild Robot, as well as Francis Ford Coppola's long-awaited passion project, Megalopolis. I say we jump right into the show, that being the first movie we're reviewing, The Wild Robot, directed by Chris Sanders. This is the latest movie from DreamWorks. I'm not sure what number it is. They've been animating movies since 1998 with Ants, and now we have their new movie. It is about a futuristic robot. 6 futuristic robots are sent out to essentially different parts of the Earth, and all of them end up going back to their colony, except for one, which ends up stranded out in the wild. While this robot is this robot named Roz, voiced by Lupita Nyong'o, while she is investigating the outdoor wilderness, trying to find certain things that she can help. She stumbles upon a goose who does not have parents, so she decides, with the help of a fox named Fink, voiced by Pedro Pascal, that she's going to raise this goose and teach it how to fly, teach it how to swim, teach it how to do all these sorts of things that eventually all these geese will learn to do. Don't want to get too much into the other parts of the movie, but I'm usually a little hit or miss on DreamWorks. Probably more hits than miss. I love the How to Train Your Dragon movies. I love the Kung Fu Panda movies. I love Rise of the Guardians. I love the new Puss in Boots movies. Lots of great movies. At the same time, they've made Shark Tale. They made the Madagascar movies. They made the Trolls movies. They made plenty of movies I don't particularly like. So every time a new DreamWorks movie comes out, you're always like, okay, what DreamWorks are we going to get? Are we going to get the ones that are sort of telling these really daring animated films that Disney usually won't go to? Or are we going to get the more like modernized, already feel dated the second they come out sort of animated movie? And not only is this one of the better not only is this a good DreamWorks movie, I would argue this is maybe up there with their best films. I really, really love The Wild Robot. And I think one of the strongest aspects of this movie is the decision on how it decides to tell its story. Most of this movie is told, especially in the first like 30 minutes of this film, are told with very, very little dialogue. We are really just watching Roz sort of awaken in this wilderness. When she wakes, she sort of wakes up in like this forest area. There's a lot of wetland areas, whether it's like waterfalls or whether it's or whether it's raining a lot. We see a lot of the animals. We see a lot of deer. We see a lot of bear. We see this porcupine family, which is voiced by Catherine O'Hara, does a very good job. And we're really just watching how these animals react to Roz, and they view her as this monster because, of course, they're not used to this futuristic robot. And we are watching her just try to find different tasks that she can complete in order to be helpful towards society. It's not completely silent like the first half of WALL-E is, which I think is maybe the best thing Pixar's ever done, that first 30 minutes. But it's told with very little dialogue. We see really dramatic things happen without the use for characters to say like, oh man, this is really awful, or oh man, this is what I got to do. We see these really, we see time pass in this really unique way. And I really want to commend the animators for deciding that they were going to not have the characters talk as much to really get across how beautiful this world is and how unique this story is. Don't get me wrong, there still are voice actors, there still is dialogue, but it's not like the Shrek movies where the characters are talking like nonstop. You get a lot of time to really sit with this world and appreciate what the movie is giving you. Another thing I love is it does a great job at throwing you right into the story. I want to say the first shot of this movie, you are literally seeing a pan out shot of Roz's face with like vines over it, with the water splashing. And does a great job of showing you like, hey, here's this robot. She's in a society that is not used to her. Watch her sort of interact and try to find different purposes. When she does eventually find the baby goose, which, by the way, the reason why the goose doesn't have parents is really kind of sad and really just sort of puts some things into perspective. Something I want to just give this movie props for a PG movie. In 2024, I think most people kind of realize that when it comes to animated movies, when an animated movie is rated PG, it usually means, okay, this is what a G-rated animated movie would have been, with maybe 1 or 2 adult jokes peppered in. This is actually a pretty intense animated film. Like, you see you see animals die. You see you see all the characters in like these really intense scenarios. The movie is not afraid. It has this really, really funny joke that is also like super dark, and I really want to commend DreamWorks for going there in this time when like I think most kids movies are usually a little bit more sensitive as to what they want to show kids. I want to give Chris Sanders credit for being like, no, kids can handle some intense situations as long as it does have a nice ending, which I will say this movie does have a very nice ending. Does have some very great vibes to it. But yeah, I want to give the movie credit for being for going those extra miles to really show some perilous situations. And I think that as an adult audience member, I really, really appreciated. The entire voice cast does a great job, especially Lupita Nyong'o, who, like I said, plays Roz, and Kit Connor, who plays Bright Bill, the goose that Roz is raising. Lupita Nyong'o, I think, is one of the more underappreciated actresses working today. She doesn't work a ton, but every time she shows up, I really love her. And I can't think of too many other movies where she is voice acting, minus the Star Wars films where she just plays Maz Kanata, who is a CGI character. But she does a great job at playing this robot. She talks in this very robotic way, but still gets but still shows the human aspects of her character, still shows the emotional aspects. A big theme of the movie is at the beginning of the film, Roz is really just concerned about the mission and how she can help in a very practical way. And as the movie starts to go on with her sort of adopting a more maternal viewpoint towards Bright Bill's life, she starts thinking a little bit more with her heart, and I think Lupita Nyong'o really does a great job at making you feel and get emotional towards the character of Roz. And yeah, Kit Connor is an actor I haven't seen a ton of. He's been in certain things, but he does a great job at showing the character of Bright Bill. When he starts off, he's very self-conscious, very aware of the fact that he's a goose that doesn't really know, that is smaller than the other geese that are learning how to swim and learning how to fly. And but as the movie goes on, he starts to get that confidence, and Kit Connor shows that through his performance. And I personally think Kit Connor was very, very good. Bill Nighy's in this movie, like I said, Pedro Pascal and Catherine O'Hara are in the movie. They're also very good parts of the voice cast, but it really is Lupita Nyong'o and Kit Connor that are the big standouts in terms of the voice actors. Even though this story might be a little basic, it's like I said, you have this one adult figure finding this young child doesn't have a family, raising it as their own, and as the movie starts to go on, when they start to go their separate ways, they're eventually reunited because of their love together. Well, it does go some base. While that plot may seem a little basic, it's told in such an emotional way that you can't help but get connected. I'm always a sucker for movies with great mother-son relationships. And as the relationship between Roz and Bright Bill starts to grow more and more, when certain things from Roz's past, certain robots go up to meet her and they say, hey, don't forget your mission. You're supposed to come back with us. But she's like, no, this is my family now. I am dedicating my life to protecting this forest and protecting these animals. I think it really is a beautiful message that I think it does send to all audience members. And I really, something I also really love about the movie is it never feels the need to force a villain into the movie. I've noticed this with a lot of animated films. They always tend to, like, towards the third act, we learn of a new villain that has been, like, behind the scenes, or is even more annoyingly just introduced in the last act just to create conflict. And while there is definitely a conflict in the last act, there's no one that you can really blame except for maybe, like, I guess, humans and how they've created robots. But there's no one for us to get mad at. We just hope that our characters are going to be okay. And I think this movie, going with that aspect, it really reminds me of animated films and family films from the 80s that were never afraid to be like, hey, here's just the major threat is the world that these characters are in. Like, the world is a scary place and they're going to try to survive, and hopefully they are strong enough to get over those odds, but we're not going to put like a villain to be like at odds with these characters. And I think that is a really, really unique and breath of fresh air for most animated films today. I genuinely feel for Bright Bill as he learns to fly and fit in. Like, the montages that we see of Bright Bill, like learning how to fly. Roz meets a goose that is like sort of like a military-esque goose, voiced by Bing Rames, who does a very good job, and he's super funny in the movie. And just watching these montages of Bright Bill learning to fly, and then towards the middle of the movie when he is able to lead his own flock, I think it's really fun just watching this character like overcome these huge obstacles that he had because he didn't grow up with a traditional goose family, and seeing that and seeing Roz become proud of him. I think that was a really beautiful message. The one last thing I want to talk about, this might come as like no surprise if you've seen the trailer, but the animation is just absolutely stunning. Like, DreamWorks has really perfected like different styles of animation, and while this is maybe a little bit more traditional 3D animation that was used in Puss in Boots: The Last Wish, I think it is like the peak of that. One, the character of Roz, like the fact that Roz is a metallic character in this world of woodland animals and woodland creatures. She stands out in such a unique way, but she just has this really cool look that you can't help but just be enamored. And also just how this movie animates the forest and the water, the way how the water looks in this movie. This is some of the best like 3D animated water I've looked, and there are just moments where I'm just in awe of the landscapes that DreamWorks was able to create with this movie. And I got to give them props for making such a beautifully animated movie just to look at from a pure aesthetic level. And the score is absolutely beautiful. I didn't write down who composed the score. If you give me just 1 second to look it up, but yeah, I think the music was really, really great and helped tell a lot of the story through those visual elements. Music by Chris Bowers. He's a composer I'm familiar with. I can't really name anything off the top of my head that he's composed, but he does a really, really great job of creating atmosphere with these scenes. If I were to rate this movie on a scale of 0 to 10 videotapes, 0 being absolutely awful, 10 being absolutely incredible, I'm going very high. I'm going to give this a 9.5 out of 10. Like I said, this is one of the best DreamWorks movies I think I've ever seen. This is one of the better movies I've seen this year. Like, I believe it's in my top 10 favorite films of the year. Really great message, really great mother-son relationship. Really great way how Chris Sanders decides to tell this story. Chris Sanders was the guy who did How to Train Your Dragon. He did Lilo and Stitch. He's no stranger to excellent animated films, and this is just another movie that he can put on his belt as an incredible film. And DreamWorks should take all the props. They were able to create something this adult and this great. If you have the time, if you want to take your kids to go see something, please go see this. This is one of the better animated movies I've seen in a while. And even if you don't have kids, I think you are going to really, really enjoy this movie. And I really hope you go see it. But yeah, I say we jump right into the second review of the night, that being Megalopolis, directed by Francis Ford Coppola. Obviously, shouldn't have to say the laurels of Francis Ford Coppola. He directed the Godfather trilogy, Apocalypse Now, The Conversation, one of the best directors of all time. He's been trying to get this project off the ground for a while. He sold his winery in order to fund it. I usually don't do this. I usually have an outline of the plot that I usually just tell you guys. The only way I feel I can describe the plot of this movie is I'm going to go to Letterboxd, and I'm just going to read the plot synopsis that it has pasted there. Genius artist Caesar Catalina, played by Adam Driver. Oh my gosh, sorry. Genius artist Caesar Catalina seeks to help the city of New Rome into a utopian idealistic future, while his opposition, Mayor Franklin Cicero, played by Giancarlo Esposito, remains committed to a regressive status quo, perpetuating greed, special interests, and partisan warfare. Torn between them is a socialite, Julia Cicero, the mayor's daughter, played by Natalie Emmanuel from Game of Thrones, whose love for Caesar has divided her loyalties, forcing her to discover what she truly believes humanity deserves. The reason why I felt the need to explain this plot is even after seeing it, and even after really digesting it and letting the movie sit in my mind and feeling like I have a pretty decent grasp on what the movie is, I just wanted to say what the movie is telling you it is and what it's advertising, so that way you have a solid idea on what this movie is. If you've seen the trailers, it looks super abstract, it looks super weird. The movie is very abstract. The movie is very weird. That is what the movie is trying to go for. I think if you do watch the movie, you will be able to pick that up. But just wanted to get that out so that way you don't get too confused. Because if I were to sit here and talk about all of the little other things about, Caesar's mistress, played by Aubrey Plaza, is also trying to get into the family. So she ends up romancing Caesar's cousin, played by Shia LaBeouf. And Caesar's dad, played by John Boyd, is there. Huge cast of in the movie. Most of them are good. I'll talk about them in a second. But yeah, it is a fairly confusing movie, and I just wanted to get that out of the way. I just want to say, like I said, Francis Ford Coppola, he's one of the most genius directors of all time. He's one of the greatest directors. His run in the 70s will go down as one of the great filmmaking streaks of all time. He hasn't really made a great movie, in my opinion, since The Rainmaker with Matt Damon. I don't think this is particularly a great movie, so I think The Rainmaker still is best movie. But what I will say is, from a technical level, this movie looks gorgeous. Like all the sets, the way how it shoots New York, and the way how it shoots New Rome, this new city that Caesar is creating, and how we learn that the reason why he's creating this new city is because he's founded this new element called Megalop. And when we first see the element, it's like orange metallic, and it's like floating, and it makes you feel like you're in the future. Like this movie doesn't give like a time period as to when it's set, but you know immediately, like, okay, this is probably like 20, 30 years in the future, and it does a great job at making this city just feel big. And rarely do we have scenes that are set during the day. Most of the scenes are set during the night, and it creates this ambient tone. And Francis Ford Coppola knows how to create mood. He knows how to shoot scenes. And if I can give this movie one piece of credit, it looks gorgeous, and it looks, when you're watching this movie, you feel like you are watching an event, and you feel like you are watching something that is trying to make a statement. Now, whether it succeeds in making that statement, that is up for you to decide, but you can very clearly tell that Francis Ford Coppola had a vision when he was making this movie. And the CGI is excellent as well. Like, you see this element that is used to like create floating roads that help transport people without cars. You see like treadmills on the sidewalk, and the design of New Rome is actually really, really cool. And part of the reason why I didn't hate this movie was just because I just found it such an intriguing thing to look at for this 2 hours and 20 minutes that I sat watching this movie. Like I said, this movie has a huge cast: Adam Driver, Giancarlo Esposito, Natalie Emmanuel, Aubrey Plaza. List goes on and on and on. And while I think all of them are giving good performances, minus maybe Natalie Emmanuel, I don't think her character. I honestly think that may have just been a issue with the writing, and that the character of Julia Cicero is just not that interesting. She's just someone who falls in love with Caesar and is just caught between her dad and Caesar and who she wants to side with. That character isn't that great. Natalie Emmanuel just doesn't give that great of a performance. Everyone else is committed and is locked into what they are doing. The issue is they're all locked into different types of movies. Adam Driver is not acting like he's in the same movie as Shia LaBeouf is. And Aubrey Plaza is not acting like she's in the same movie as John Boyd is. They're all giving these different types of energy. Some of them thinks this is a really melodramatic thought think piece on where America is going, how we can progress forward as a society while not committing the sins of the past. And others are just think this is a straight up satire, straight up parody of the modern American man being obsessed with creating their own legacy. And I just don't think those elements really come together. This movie has a lot of humorous moments. The issue is I think half of them weren't meant to be humorous. Now, I think most of the stuff that comes from Adam Driver, I think he's probably giving the best performance in the movie. As Caesar, he seems to be the most locked in. He seems to be the one that is able to get the best type of grasp on what this script was going. As this guy who's very arrogant, who sees himself as this sort of godlike figure, but also is able to find the humor in that, how an audience member can laugh at that, like, look at this idiot, look how he thinks that he's the new Messiah, and how sort of drawing parallels to how maybe like certain political figures of the past or of current day view themselves as the Messiah. I think Coppola is trying to say a lot with this movie. I think the only issue is most of it just doesn't come together, and most of the allegories and the symbolism is just so obvious that you just kind of end up rolling your eyes, just like, okay, Coppola, we get it. You are afraid of as to where humanity is going. You feel like we need to start over. We need to address certain things, and you can very clearly tell once again that Francis had a vision. I think the issue is it just feels so cluttered and so so mismanaged that you can't help but feel like, man, I just wish this movie just had a little bit more focus and maybe was trying to tackle maybe 2 or 3 less of the ideas that it is trying to tackle. Even though I usually do love hugely ambitious movies, I have a poster of Magnolia on my wall. It's my favorite movie of all time. That is essentially just a 28-year-old man at the time, Paul Thomas Anderson, literally showing every single thought that he has had as a human being at that moment and just putting it on camera. And I think it's perfect and a masterpiece. This one just doesn't come together as easily as movies like Magnolia or Nashville do. And I think that is a shame because I do want to love this movie. There are scenes in this movie where the movie just goes completely surreal and it feels almost unbearable. Like these are like the moments I hate in this movie. There's this scene where all the characters are at this like Cirque du Soleil performance and watching this one character just like on the stage like have this huge musical performance, and then we learn something horrible about this character, and then we just see like the character of Caesar just sort of lose his mind in ways where it's just one frame at a time, him just shaking his head. It gets really misty, and it just these filmmaking techniques, like, I don't want to tell Francis Ford Coppola he doesn't know how to make a movie because he obviously does, but these scenes just really got on my nerves, and it just made me wish, like, man, I wish this is one of the few movies, and I hate to say this, I wish the studio would have put him maybe on a little bit more of a leash than he was. Now, the man made The Godfather. He's allowed to do whatever he wants for the rest of time. He's in his 80s, so I don't want to say, like, man, you shouldn't be making the movie you want because, oh my gosh, we only have you for a certain amount of time. Go make whatever movie you want. But a part of me does, as I was watching this movie, I was like, man, what would this have looked like if it was just a little bit more restrained, if it was just a little bit more subtle? And I think we would have gotten a really excellent movie. While this movie I do enjoy and I do see the merit of, it's just one that I can't really see myself recommending that extremely because it does feel so jarring, and it is not for the average moviegoer at all. I think if you saw the trailer, you can very clearly tell this is for a certain type of people. This is for a certain type of really insane hardcore movie fan, which I am. But I don't review movies as an insane hardcore movie fan. I have to review movies as a critic, and as that, I have to say, for an average moviegoer, I don't think this is going to be something that you are going to be loving. If I were to review this movie on a scale of 0 to 10 videotapes, I am rating this on a personal level. I'm going to give it a barely passing 6 out of 10. There's a lot of stuff I like in this movie. I like the look of it. I like most of the performances, even if they don't feel like they are coming from the same movies. There are some great scenes in the movie, but man, it is one of the most inaccessible movies in a long time. If obvious symbolism bothers you, this is not going to be a movie that you are going to enjoy. I can definitely see this movie in the future getting a cult following from fans that discover it years down the line. And I wish I can be with you, be with the few select people that are loving this movie. I appreciate that Francis Ford Coppola was able to tell his vision. I just wish I would have liked it more, even though I did appreciate a lot of what Francis Ford Coppola was trying to say with this film. But that is the show. Thank you all for watching. Remember to like this video and subscribe to the video store. It helps grow our channel a lot. Next week, speaking of directors that are taking big swings, Joker Folie à Deux is coming out. Going to be reviewing that as well as one of their movies. Thank you all for tuning in, and as always, watch more movies.
And the award for most vapid film review of the century goes to...
Okay, movie review. Okay, I thought it was beauty.
And he's now in cinema hell, where one day we'll all be reunited.
This is me at the Regal Cinema.